Hey, how's it going? My name is Jazz, and this is Max Loves Midland.
Welcome back to the Max Loves Midland show. I'm your tour guide, Kevin LaDuke, and I'm pretty excited because with me today is somebody that you've definitely seen their art. This is Jazz Benitez.
Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
Jazz, thank you so much for being here. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off immediately.
Okay, let's do that.
Your form of media isn't necessarily this, or your form of art. So this is not traditionally your comfort zone, having one of these large microphones in front of you, is it?
For sure, not what I like to do.
So we're going to set the tone immediately, and today's theme is we're going to be awkward.
Okay.
So if we feel awkward, we can just remember this is natural and this is the way it's supposed to be.
It's true. It's true.
So we're hanging out here again at JNC Media, right here in the Ashman Plaza. This space, you spend so much time in the Ashman Plaza.
I do.
So what are your roles currently? Like what are you doing around this building right now?
So I'm the director of operations for Live Oak. I've been with them for 7 years. I do a lot of computer work. I work behind bar a little bit. Roast coffee sometimes when they need that. I also work inside Parker Lane, which is upstairs, which is the art studio upstairs. And then in the winter, we're also doing live music with blue lights. So I am in the Ashman Plaza a lot.
That's awesome. And I think it speaks to like what kind of home this building has really created for folks.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's say I walk up to the coffee bar and you're behind it. It's one of those random days. It's a Tuesday afternoon and I need to pick me up. And I say, dealer's choice. What are you going to make me?
Ooh, depends on what I'm drinking. Usually like a cafe miel is a really good one that I make for people. Or like an iced mocha if you can have chocolate. Those are the two like really good ones that I do. But anything with latte art that I can actually have fun with is kind of where I'm at.
I think we should have done like a fun game where we had like different pictures of different coffee drinks. And then I say, you describe this person as I flip it. What's the one drink that you like to make the least? Not that you would think negatively of somebody who ordered it, but just the drink itself. You're like, come on.
I don't know if there's a drink like that. I don't mind making anything, really. I think when someone brings me something I've never heard of and I have to ask them what it is, that's when I become a little bit uncomfortable about it. But I'm happy to make whatever. I love experimenting. So if someone brings a drink to me that they're like, hey, this is what I had one time at a coffee shop in Iowa. I don't know why Iowa. Then we'll just make it happen. Like, let's get it as close as possible.
And that's kind of your thing. I mean, you're a creator. Mm-hmm. So we named all these job titles and we said all these things. But I think most people, if you ask them in the community, who is Jazz Benitez, what would they say?
Probably that I'm an artist. That's probably the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds. When I first started working at Live Oak, I was very front-facing, but now that I'm more behind the scenes, people don't really know me for that specifically. I think in the eyes of the community, a lot of people know me for my artwork.
And now, that title of artist wasn't always something you would have necessarily felt comfortable putting on yourself. And I went to one of your displays or one of your shows at Creative 360 where you've had a lot of your art displayed, and I just really loved your vulnerability and your storytelling at that space to talk about your journey, and I'm hoping that we can bring a little bit of that to the table here with Max Loves Midland today, because what you're doing is really providing an example of somebody in the community that has overcame a lot and went forward with art in the manner that you have. So what has that been like? Like, it's this whirlwind of art, it feels like.
Yeah. It has definitely been a ride, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to just kind of keep working at it, kind of keep driving towards it. I think knowing your why and knowing the bigger picture of why you're doing things is important. But no, it was not always my, like, I think I always wanted to call myself an artist growing up, but I was around so many people who did like traditional fine art that I didn't know how to like place myself in those spaces. So when I moved to Midlands, fast forward, met Daisha and Renee, it was hard to decide that I was an artist, to say I was an artist. But because of the work that I was doing in those early days of like entertainment style art classes where, you know, the patrons would follow me doing an art project, it would be awkward to stand up there and say, yeah, I kind of know how to do this. Let's paint together. That would be really weird. So it kind of forced me to call myself an artist, and kind of like the more that you say that you are something, the more that becomes true, if that makes sense.
So growing up, were you always doing art, or was that kind of like a new thing?
No, I was always doing art. Since like I can stick my hands in it and throw it on a canvas. Yeah, I've been doing it my whole life. I took a lot of art classes through high school and college. I did graphic design in college. But I didn't know that I could do it as a career because I didn't really know what my like niche was. I always wanted to do murals, but I didn't know how I was going to do that. When I lived in California, it was a lot of like, I'm going to go spray paint in the middle of the night, and that's just, I'm grateful that that's not the path that kind of unfolded for me. So, yeah.
So we can put the rumors to rest. It's not you vandalizing anything down by the Tridge.
It's true. It is not me. It is not me.
No, your art is very visible. So if somebody's driving through the community, just to give them a little bit of a level set, and I know this, as soon as you're coming off US 10 and you're coming to downtown Midland, you look to your right, and it's one of your pieces. What does that piece mean to you, and what is that piece?
So the change wall coming off of US 10, that was my very first big mural in Midland. I worked with Mick Yak for Midland Area Community Foundation. So that was my very first one. That was my, like, there was a artist call out, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I just like submitted one, and I was very fortunate to be able to be chosen to do a big mural in Midland. So it means a lot to me. I think it was my very first experience of understanding the power of art and understanding the power of public art specifically. We had a lot of people stop and talk to us during that, us putting that work up. And I don't know, it means a lot to me. It's kind of like the door opening, if you will, to what we're doing, what I'm doing today, what our community is doing today too, what we're working together to kind of bring more public art, more like inspirational pieces to Midland.
I think it's really cool that you did that in conjunction with the Youth Action Council.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's neat about that too is I run across those pictures quite often, like going through files or folders, and we'll see some of, at that point, kids, young adults in those photos, like Peter Barbeau, who's now like in a band and he's going to be playing at River Days and worked at Live Oak, and he lives in Seattle.
He
and
was in that picture.
Yeah, it's just bizarre to see like all of these convergence of people that still are kind of in similar spaces.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you to like be able to work with youth and show youth that what's possible through the power of art?
Yeah, that is really important to me. I think so. Actually, a little bit of background. I wanted to apply for that job to like kind of mentor those students, and then ended up doing the mural instead, which was way better suited in my opinion. But I've always wanted to work with young adults and like teenagers and young kids. I think that they have the power to change the world, and I'd like to like give them the opportunity to be completely themselves while doing it.
And that inspiration, what does that come from? What was it like for you growing up? I mean, I know you didn't grow up in Midland, so where are you originally from?
I'm from California. Grew up in Fullerton, Orange County area.
So not too different from here.
Super not different at all. But the way that it is kind of like from here, I grew up in a Catholic community, so very small knit community. Everyone knew everyone, and then went into broader high school.
So speaking of California, growing up there, like what was the household like for you? Did you grow up with your parents, or what was that like?
Yeah, I grew up with my parents. They're both still married. So my mom and dad, and then my little brother and my older brother. So my older brother and I are 17 months apart. My little brother and I are 7 years apart. So very different dynamics, but we were kind of a sports household. So I played sports. My little brother played sports. My older brother played sports. So a lot of moving parts. So yeah.
What did you play?
I played water polo.
Okay.
Do
you ever play anymore here? I mean,
it would be really cool too, but there's nowhere to really play that. I looked it up. I've always wanted to kind of go back and do the adult league, but the closest place is Grand Rapids. It's kind of a hike.
So did you play sanctioned in high school?
In high school, yeah.
How many people did you graduate with?
A lot of people. I have no idea. But I had 13 or 14 people on my team, if not more than that. But yeah, I played sophomore year to senior year. My little brother has played like his entire life, so he was super good. But
so looking at those dynamics, thinking about like Orange County, and for me, like Laguna Beach is all I know. Like I watched the TV show Laguna Beach.
Right, everybody has seen the OC, you know?
Yeah, like the OC or any of these other shows. It's exactly like that, correct?
Not realistic to where I grew up, I think. I definitely grew up where there was a lot of poverty, a lot of kind of debris and litter around, a lot of spray paint on walls and those kinds of things. Granted, I did go to a more prominent high school, so not a lot of that kind of stuff happening right at the high school spaces, but definitely when you drive around town. But I think that I don't think I've ever seen it in that way, you know? I didn't know that it was kind of a poorer area when I was growing up. I just enjoyed the park and, you know, hung out with my friends at the mall and did kid stuff and didn't really realize, like, the trouble that was going around me.
So what takes an aspiring artist in Orange County to end up in Midland, Michigan?
A lot of things. I had some kind of disagreements with my family and a lot of growing pains within my family. So I was living on my own, ended up moving here because I met someone here that did not go as planned or as thought out. But, you know, when you're 21, you make a lot of rash decisions. But they're really growing decisions. And then I ended up finding my community here when I got linked up with Live Oak and Daisha with Parker Lane. And that's when I really was able to lean into the artistry, lean into what I always wanted to do that I was too afraid to say yes to.
And we talked a lot about identity and this idea of who someone is and being accepted and empathy for others. And what did it really take for you to find who you are here in Midland?
What did it take? I think that it took a lot of support. I think that no matter how strong-minded you think you are, it's easier to walk in in your fears. You're braver when you have more people around you who love and support you for who you are. I think that's when I felt better about leaning into whatever my identity is. And I do the quotes because I think I'm always discovering my identity. I think I've always been searching for it my entire life. And I don't think one shoe fits all, if you will. I think we're always changing. We're always growing into that next person we're supposed to be.
So we talked a little bit about mentorship, and you've had great mentors here in the community or folks that are here in the Ashman Plaza. And we've mentioned Deja Parker a lot. We've mentioned Renee Deckrow a lot. And I, too, look up to these people, and I just think they're incredible folks holding things down here in the community.
Yeah.
But now as roles begin to change, you're also looked up to. And I know you and I had a discussion about what it means to be looked up to as somebody in the LGBTQ plus community here in Midland. And what is that advice that you have for folks that are younger that are not quite to that place yet of being able to say, this is who I am?
I think don't be afraid of who you are right now. And I think we like to put ourselves in boxes and put each other in boxes of, you know, you're this letter or that letter, if you will. But I think we are ever changing and ever growing. And I think to put yourself in a box because that's where you're at right now is okay. But also it's okay to choose something different tomorrow. And not to say that it's always a choice specifically in the notion of that, if you know what I'm talking about. I think that it's okay to feel differently tomorrow. and it's okay to lean into that. What's not okay is to not allow each other to grow, to not allow each other to be different. I think authenticity speaks volumes to the change you can make in a community. And the more you lean into your authenticity and your me being a little awkward, a little not wanting to be on camera, all of this kinds of things, that is my truth within a space. And the more that'll give voice to somebody else who might have things to say, but maybe they don't want to like sit in front of a camera and speak into a microphone, you know?
And I appreciate you being here and just being open and honest, because we're talking about complex things that are very personal to you and very personal to all of us when we're talking about who we are as people, but then also complex when we're talking about as a community.
Yeah.
And an interesting conversation to be had is, as part of our vision statement, it's Midland, an inclusive community. That was added here recently. That's a vision statement. It's not a reality statement. And we know there's a lot of complexities in that. How do you feel like that's changed since you've arrived in Midland? How many years ago now?
14.
14 years ago.
That's wild.
So if 14 years ago you would have came to Midland and you heard that the vision statement was Midland, an inclusive community, what would you have said?
Well, I wouldn't know that, for one. And for two, I don't know that I would say that. I think Midland has grown a lot in 14 years. The more that we as a community feel safer to be in spaces, I think I see more and more queer people in Midland all of the time, more and more people of different ethnicities in Midland all the time. So I think as an inclusive community, I think we're going in the right direction. And I hope that we're always growing in the right direction.
We have all these conversations about people development, people attraction, people retention, talent attraction, talent. These are all buzzy, and it's all of these words, but really it's about that connection. So how do you, like when folks are connecting one-on-one in these spaces, do you feel like a lot more of that is occurring within our community?
Yeah, I think so. I think that more and more people feel safe to acknowledge what is important to them, and more people are open to hearing those things and like kind of rallying together. I think Midland is really special in that way, that it's not just like finding one cause that fits everybody and like let's like run for it, but it's like the Changing Places bathroom that's across the road. You know, that it's about giving voice to the people who don't have a voice. And I think that Midland is special in the way that we care about our neighbors and the well-being of them. And we want to see each other feel welcomed and included, regardless of who you are or that sort of thing.
And speaking of being public, and you just have so much art out and about, and we talked about the one piece on the way into town.
Yeah.
What other pieces can people see around town that are yours
that
specifically,
are mine
or ones that you've worked on at least?
So within that same year, I also worked with Jessica Garber on the People Helping People that's on Saginaw Road. That's by Hungry Howie's. And then I collaborated within Art Scene and Public Arts Midland for the Fox that's downtown, the Fox mural, and the Bird that is on Ace Hardware. And then collaborated with a lot of other people on other various things. But yeah.
Where does your inspiration come from when you are looking to design something, or even is it a design, does it just kind of come to you?
Definitely life experiences. I think specifically like the Fox, for example, we as a community were going through a lot directly after 2020. COVID era, and we needed something that inspired us to kind of keep going, inspired us to like move into the unknown, like one foot in front of the other. And so I think the Fox for me, you know, there's various meanings of what a fox means to different cultures and those kinds of things, but he's a guide for you in your future. He is going ahead of you and giving you wisdom on those things. So I find a lot of my inspiration through life, and and what are the things that I'm trying to say, or that the person who's building it is trying to say. You know, everybody has a story to tell, and I like to ask questions and find out what it is, what story is that, and kind of pull from that as inspiration.
Now, your work isn't only central to Midland, though. So what other projects have you worked on?
So I've put a mural in Bay City, near the Friendship Shell. I did a mural there. I have things in Saginaw through Live Oak, and I did stuff in a dentist office. And I also just finished a mural in East Lansing, which was a lot of fun. It was my first one outside of the area. That was really exciting. So, yeah, hopefully more after this year. But
are they all similar styles, or?
No, very kind of different, I guess. The things that I've done through Public Arts Midland and Art Scene has been very community-based. So a lot of it is done by the community. So we've designed them to be easy to just like kind of paint in the shape. So in the different regard in East Lansing, it was very much just me painting a wall, which was a lot of fun. So I got to really kind of lean into like the gradients and all of the artistic side of it. So it's a little different, but a little bit of the same. I think most people know that it's my work based on like the brush strokes and the way things are kind of formed together, but there's no animals on that one, so it's different.
And as you continue to develop more pieces, and you have pieces throughout the Great Lakes Bay region, and now you have a new piece in Lansing, and maybe if I'm getting my tooth pulled, I'll see something at a dentist office. I'm sure as you put more pieces up, folks want to interact with you more about your art. So how does that make you feel to kind of be like put on spot for testimony for the things you were putting up?
Mm-hmm. When it comes to like getting interviewed and those kinds of things, I get a little bit more nervous about, but having conversations about my artwork or public art in general, I do like talking about it. I don't mind being asked those kinds of questions, like over coffee or over the bar at Live Oak, or if you happen to see me, please don't hesitate or be afraid to come talk to me. I definitely love the one-on-one more than like being on camera or being on a stage. I think that the art has its own voice, and I like to know what people get from it more than talking about it, but I'll do both, I guess.
And we talk about what people get from it. What do you get from the process? Like, is it cathartic for you?
Yes. Yeah. Mural making is a little bit different than like just painting on a canvas as far as cathartic goes. But I think I remember sitting up on scaffolding when I was doing the change wall, and I'm sitting there with my friend Emmy, and we're watching all of these cars kind of come in to Midland, and it hit me how many people are going to see this mural, and it kind of took me back, like whoa, you know. But I think that like with that, it does make it more important. I think I feel like my canvases have always been just for me, right? So I paint them and I go through my emotional process, and whatever I'm going through, I can like kind of put it all on a canvas. And whether or not I choose to show that later is a total different conversation. But mural making is specifically to give to the community. And whatever they take from it is a whole nother thing. But
do you have a lot of art that you keep private?
Not so much now that I'm kind of out in the open. I think social media just kind of changes the game in that aspect. But I think that the work that you do in your studio, you have the opportunity and the choice whether you give it to somebody else, as in show it to the community, show it to Instagram, whatever. Whereas when you get asked to do a mural, anybody who walks by, they get to see it, whether you're ready to show it off or not.
I would like to compliment your Instagram as well. You are a great Instagram follow.
Thank you.
You are. And I think it's cool when you are working on projects. You put together a lot of cool video edits even. Mm-hmm. And that does not go unnoticed, especially somebody who has interest in that field and, degree in broadcasting. So you work in other mediums as well beyond just traditional art. So yeah. Are you just always creating in different spaces?
Yes, always creating. I think I find it hard not to. I get actually lost within a conversation thinking about things that I can create out of the conversation. So I think that's my ADHD, really.
It's as a creative, that's our superpower.
Yeah, it
That
is a
that's like-
superpower, but it's also like, oh, I'm supposed to be in this conversation. So, yeah, I mean, I'm constantly creating. I've always loved doing videos. I've always loved doing photography ever since I can kind of pick up a camera, but mostly for myself, nothing that I'd want to do professionally necessarily. I think if I were to make one of those two things a profession, it would probably be videography, but I know there's so much more to it than just like following someone with my camera, you know? But I think anything is possible.
Josh is in the production room right now, like shaking his head, like, come on now. No, that's great. I do. I think that's awesome when you turn something on and you're bringing something to life in different ways. And I've spoke about this with Renee Decro too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so cool to see the intersection of storytelling that takes place. Because I think when folks right now are talking about storytelling, they're thinking written story.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're thinking maybe something like this, like
Yeah.
a video podcast. But truly, everything kind of surrounds storytelling.
Yeah.
So at the core of each one of your pieces, like, does it always start with a very specific idea, or do you just kind of let it happen?
For mural making, it is a story. It is like what emotion am I trying to get out of the viewer, or where am I trying to guide them to? What does the client want to guide them to? So I just did a mural in the Juvenile Correction Center, and it's a picture of like the Japanese wave, which is pretty traditional art, and then some like seaweed growing up the wall and gold splashed in there and storms and all of these things. And just to talk about like these storms that we go through in our life and the big waves that we feel and the ebbs and flows. It is just our situation in this moment, and eventually it'll lead to growth on the other side. Like, don't forget to keep growing. And that mural specifically I made with like chalkboard wall in the background so that the kids that are there are able to add to the mural themselves also, because it is their story. It is their time to grow within that space, even though their situation is what it is. I think it's important to tell a story when you're doing big art like that, because hundreds of people could see it, you know?
So what's next for your art? Where do you go from here?
So I'm applying to different towns and different cities and different states across the country, artist calls and things like that. So I'd love to be able to travel for my art. I'm constantly painting or drawing or something. So I'm pretty open to anything, but I do hope to travel for it. I do hope to be able to do some artwork in California because that's where I grew up. Wherever it takes me, I guess.
So as we travel throughout the community and we're looking at places where the road takes me and I go past your art and I'm interacting, where are some of the places we might see you at when you're not doing art? So you're out and about, you're a member of this community. Where are your places at here in Midland?
So you'll definitely see me at Barstow Woods with my dog. I'm there constantly. And I like to hang out downtown too. I like to go to the Tridge. City Forest is a good one that I like to go to also. Anywhere where four-legged creatures can go is generally where you'll find me. Yeah.
And you said your dog, Finley, right?
Yeah.
How old is Finley?
She is 2.5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've went through the puppy stage,
Yep.
and that's always fun.
Yep.
What's Finley into?
Finley is into squirrels.
Okay.
Anything with fur, which is a good and a bad thing. As long as she can't catch them, I think is a good thing. She also just discovered that she likes swimming around in mud holes, so that's good.
It's awesome for you.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Do you share the same passion? Or
If it wasn't a mud hole, I'd love to get in the water with her, but she's still kind of learning how to be a swimming dog and those kinds of things. At City Forest, where that bridge is, she loves running like up and down and all over through there. So it's been good to kind of see her, like watch her see the world for the first time and those kinds of things.
You talked about the parkland and parkland as an asset here in Midland. And again, I've been inviting people every episode to be a fact checker. So if I get this wrong, come into the studio, become a fact checker, please.
Yes.
I think that we have more parkland than, and this is nothing against our surrounding communities, but more than Bay, Mount Pleasant, and Saginaw combined, which is absolutely incredible. And we talk about assets that keep people in Midland.
Yeah.
What are some of the assets that help keep this home beyond this wonderful building we're sitting in and the collaboration and the teamwork that happens here? Would you say that's your defining factor? Would it be parkland or?
Yeah. I think so. Growing up in kind of a suburb area, urban area, I never really experienced parks the way we experience them here in Midland, especially like the amount of trees and different types of parkland that we have. I like that you can walk through a neighborhood and find a random park hidden in there. I think that's really cool. I think Barstow is really special because it's in the middle of town and it's like a little wooded area. I think City Forest is awesome. It's giant in comparison to the spaces that I grew up in. So I think it's really special, and I love Midland for that reason, for sure. But I think what makes Midland home is that that we're good neighbors. And even any neighbor that I may or may not have a disagreement with, there's still like camaraderie there, undertoned the disagreement, you know?
So, and we celebrate Neighboring Week every year here in Midland. So what does neighboring mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I think that neighboring is just being a kind human to the people around you and to yourself. I've always had neighbors my entire life, obviously, growing up in urban areas. My dad was very much like the kind of guy who went out and spoke to everybody around town, and everybody knew him. I definitely got that from him. But he definitely had that, how can you just look at a human and see their humanity and just be another good human to them, regardless of who they are, where they come from. So
I think your journey here is really interesting to me because as we continue to talk, I keep thinking about other conversations I've had, and traditionally they're around a specific job opportunity or a specific catalyst of college. For you, you came here and the mission wasn't exactly what you thought it was going to be when you arrived, but it feels like you've stayed here through love.
Yeah.
And you've stayed here through connection. And I think that's a really interesting way to view people retention and people attraction, because that truly takes out, and you are very talented, but it truly takes out that idea of talent and it really connects it to emotion and feeling. So those is that accurate, or am I catching that incorrect?
No, that sounds really nice. That's really true. I think I never really thought about it that way. I've always thought like, oh yeah, my community connects me here, but also, I do art and all of this other things. But I do think that love definitely is what keeps me here. I really like that. I might carry that with me past this conversation. I think I've always wanted to belong somewhere. I was bullied a lot growing up, and that is a very lonely space. And so I've always wanted to find somewhere that I knew that people around me loved and cared about me for who I am. And I really found that in Midland, not just from my workplace, but the various organizations that I kind of hang out with and work to build Midland to be the kind of place that we all want to live in. So
now recently, I met your parents even.
Yeah.
So your parents were in town.
Yeah, you were. You did meet my parents.
I did meet your parents. A couple times I saw them here at Live Oak. What was that experience like was that their first time here in Midland?
First time here in Michigan, first time here in Midland. I think my dad came here when he was in his 20s, but not Midland specifically, So yeah, first time in Midland, first time in Michigan in the 14 years that I've lived here. That was really interesting. I was really nervous to begin with. I think it was my own, like, whatever's going on in my head. But it was great. My parents want to move here.
Amazing,
which is awesome.
This is now the second time on this show somebody's mentioned their parents wanting to move to Midland. So this is great.
Hear about that.
This is great.
So I think it was really good for them to see what Midland is about, what keeps me here. I think that they had an idea that, oh yeah, I have a supportive community here, but it's very different when you're in the space and can really understand what I'm talking about when I say, this, that, and the other. But it was really fun. It was fun. My mom loves nature and flowers and all of those kinds of things. So I took her to Dow Gardens, and it was a great experience.
I thought it was really neat too, as we were they were getting ready to leave, and I was here at a work meeting, and it was with my boss Sharon Mortensen, and Sharon talking to your parents, and Sharon just being like, I'm sure it's tough to say goodbye. Well, we love Jazz here. Jazz is just so talented. And I just think that's wonderful because we do love you here. And we're so happy that you call this home. You make this better for a lot of us. And we talk about art being something that centers people here. So you've received all this love from folks that have allowed you to feel included and seen. But you've also created a lot of places that allow other people to feel at home. And I just want to say thank you for that as a community member, because that's truly special.
Thank you.
And I think back to a lot of different projects that have been worked on through Public Arts Midland, which you've been heavily involved in. And I specifically think of the Painted Piano Project. And during the Painted Piano Project, there was one piano that was given away to a teenager named Jackson. And I've been meaning to check up on Jackson, see how Jackson's doing. But Jackson learned how to play the piano through that being outside. It was outside of the community foundation office in the circle, but Jackson would walk over every day and learn how to play that piano, and we were able to give that piano to Jackson.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool intersection between folks creating art, but then Jackson creating art, and it's all these outlet pieces of how things are connected.
Yeah.
So what would you tell someone who is nervous to refer to themselves as an artist or nervous to try the thing?
I say do it scared. I think the more that you tell yourself and tell people that you're an artist, the more that becomes true. Being afraid to call myself an artist, being afraid to lean into it, only left me in fear. I think that we can sit and contemplate whether or not we're ever going to be good enough to do this thing, or we can just try and see what happens. I think most people would surprise themselves.
And now we've talked about all this different art and different types of media, and we've used the word art a million times, so we might as well just keep using it.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be fun if we went back and forth a little bit, and we went through our favorite artistic mediums or favorite mediums of creating. And I would like you to go first, and just what would be your first pick in those categories?
Mediums. So, I work with acrylic on canvas just because that is the fastest in my opinion. I mostly do abstract work. I really like it because you can like kind of convey all your emotions and nothing has to look a specific way. But I do like surrealism, so things that like Salvador Dali has done and other artists. They kind of like take you into a dream state, things that are not real but can kind of be real, but you're not sure, kind of things. Anything that kind of makes your mind wander about what is happening.
I would say for me, it's probably video.
Okay.
I think growing up, my friends and I, when we were like 17, 18, it's like we were like doing like breakdancing and we were like into dance culture. So like my first piece that's out there somewhere is us like dancing around Beaverton.
Okay.
And we were filming it and shooting it in different ways. And it was quite the undertaking, but we just had a good time. And that was the first time I ever really saw artwork in that type of connection space.
Yeah.
And I'd never taken video to another space other than that. I mean, I used to have a little handy cam and would shoot little videos in the basement or whatever. But it was the first time like doing anything publicly and having to interact with other people. So
that's cool.
I think for me, like videography is just cool, like moving picture.
Yeah.
And that's always been fun for me to play with in different ways. And now seeing that just grow, and we talked about Reels and TikToks and Shorts and everything else, like that micro content is so much fun too.
Yeah,
so moving video into different spaces.
For sure.
What other kind of stuff do you like to work with? Like what would be your second favorite style?
I like videography too. I think it's always in the back of my mind. Being someone who has ADHD, I'm kind of seeing the world in like a three-dimensional way all the time, and not in the like, oh, this is a three-dimensional piece, but like I'm painting this over here, but I definitely can see myself painting it over here, which is kind of a superpower of ADHD, I think. So videography, I didn't even think about it, you know. Videography and music, I think, are like, they tie for sure on the artist realm of things.
Now let's continue going on with music for a second.
Okay.
I want to talk about Blue Light.
Okay.
What the heck's Blue Light?
Blue Light is a music venue within the Ashman Plaza. Originally in the late 60s, I reopened it in 2021 to help young musicians or musicians coming out of like family retirement or what have you, come in and play for a room and learn their own artistry and grow that. So
Was Blue Light the original name?
yes, it is the original name.
That's awesome. Not the original logo, though, right?
Not the original logo. I almost brought the original logo back, but it did need a little bit of a revamp. Nothing wrong with the old one. So I got Annie in there, and she sent me something really cool and retro. Love it. So
Now, if folks want to see some sort of show involving Blue Light, what would they do?
So just follow us on Instagram. We have a lot of information on there going out. We do winter living room sessions is what we call them. So through the late fall, through the winter, early spring, we'll have live music on Friday nights where we bring in one or two musicians to show us what they got. And it's a good time. So right there in the Maker's Room of Live Oak.
How are you meeting local artists?
Mostly it originally started happening because we have a lot of musicians on staff. So Jolie Wing used to come and play in the shop, and Noah Schreiber also. So we've had a lot of musicians come through Live Oak. I think being a coffee shop, baristas are creative at something. So that's a lot of the way, and it's just grown from there. So people have just reached out to us. Some people knew Peter, some people knew Jolie or Meg, and that's kind of how it's kind of grown organically. I don't know that we do a lot of promoting for like artists to come find us. I think there's so many musicians in Midland that are just hungry to play. So it's just giving them another space to do that.
Well, that's incredible, and I look forward to seeing some of these Blue Light shows coming up soon.
Yeah.
And I also think it's great, too, when I've seen these other artists in other spaces, and I know you've really catalyzed a lot of them being able to be seen publicly, really. And I know that wasn't necessarily the goal of Blue Light, but showcasing these artists have allowed them to get other gigs, and it's just, we talk about how this tree just keeps building, right? And it's just pretty awesome that Live Oak logo continues to be a tree, because it just continues to branch and branch and branch and branch.
Right.
And I have to ask, I ask everyone on the show,
Okay.
looking forward to Midland, what do you want for the future of this community?
What do I want? I think that I want us to continue to grow in the inclusion of what that means as it grows within society as a whole. I think it's so much more than what media talks about, and I hope that we continue to grow in that space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and sharing your love with me today. And
Thank
then
you.
also just sharing how Midland has made you feel loved and what keeps you around this community. And we're looking forward to more art, more excitement, more music, more smiles. And I think that's my favorite thing, too, is like every time I walk into a room and I see Jazz, it's big smile, genuine happiness. And that just is a really inviting feeling. So thank you so much for being so inviting and being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
And thank you guys for being here with us today. We appreciate you being here for another ride with the Maxwell's Midland Show. We always end it this way, but you know, when life gives you a bridge and it doesn't do the work, just build a tridge. Thank you.
Hilarious.
Subscribe wherever you consume media. Maxwell's Midland is your entertainment, resources, and collective improvement hub for Midland County. Plan your next adventure in Midland at maxwellsmidland.com.